Shout out to Timothy, who I was talking to today, and he asked me about Matthew 24, verse 14, which says, "And the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come." He says, back in the old Stumo days, that was taught to us as proof that Jesus can't come back, not now anyways, because the gospel hasn't been preached to all the world. And in fact, the mission work of the church was encouraged so that the gospel could be heard in all the world, and then Jesus would come back. Now, I've been teaching, Pastor Fisk and I have been doing a lot of teaching, in fact, on the fact that there's no promises yet to be fulfilled, that Jesus can come back at any moment, that we're not waiting for anything. At the destruction of Jerusalem, that was it. All the promises are fulfilled, they're done, and now the next one is the second coming. But is it contradicted by this verse? After all, it says the gospel will go and be preached in the world as a witness. Well, the thing that we need to do to answer that question is to look at the scriptures and say, first, does the Bible say anything about the gospel being preached in all the world? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of verses. First, Romans 10, verse 18, which says this, "But I say, have they not heard? Yes, indeed, they have heard. The sound has gone out to all the earth, and their words to the end of the world." That, in fact, indicates that the gospel has gone to the end of the world. Now, Paul not only says that, but he says in Romans 1:8, focus, "First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, that your faith is spoken of throughout the entire world." That's not all. Colossians 1:5 and 6 and Colossians 1:23 says, focus, this, "Because the hope which is laid up for you in heaven, of which you heard before in the word of the truth of the gospel, which has come to you as it has also in all the world, and is bringing forth fruit, as it is also among you since the day you heard and knew the grace of God in truth." And then verse 23 says, "If indeed you continue in the faith, grounded and steadfast, and are not moved away from the hope of the gospel, which you heard, which was preached to every creature under heaven, of which I, Paul, became a minister." Now, okay, so the scripture says, Paul says, especially the Romans 10 verse and this Colossians 1:23, and the other ones are equally clear. They indicate to us that the gospel has been preached in all the world, to everyone under the world, and to every creature in the world. And it uses the same language that Jesus used in Matthew 24 to indicate that this promise has in fact been fulfilled. Now, you're going to say, wait, Pastor Wolfmuller, hold on. We know that when Paul was writing to the Colossians, that people hadn't even discovered North America or whatever. To which I want to suggest to you that we have our doctrine of sola scriptura, that we don't want to get the promise from the scripture and the fulfillment from history. If the Bible, which gives us the promise, gives us the fulfillment of the promise, then we can stand and say, hey, that promise is fulfilled. The scripture says it. Now, how to understand it, how to understand that, the fulfillment of these promises, and this, how to understand that the gospel was preached to every creature in the world, like Paul says in Colossians, we might not understand how that happened historically, but we at least know that the condition that Jesus set up has been fulfilled already by the time that Paul wrote Romans and Colossians. So, Timothy, good question. It's a good little Bible study. I hope it helps. God's peace be with you.